Good evening. My name is Robert Ritchie. I'm a commissioner of the Charter Review Commission. Welcome to everyone who is here on YouTube and to those that are here now are going to come in person to Providence City Hall. Before we begin, I'd like to give a quick overview of what the City Charter Review Commission is, what we're doing, and why we're having the public hearing this evening. So, since 1980, the City of Providence has had a home rule city charter. Prior to 1980, and I believe back to 1940, from 1940 to 1980, we had a legislative charter. So what is a charter? A charter is basically the framework of how the City of Providence government is organized. It is not the code of ordinances that the City Council passes. It is not the state statutes of the state of Rhode Island passes. It's just a framework of how the city government will be organized. For example, it spells out how many council people there will be, which is 15. It spells out that there'll be a mayor and what the mayor's powers and duties are and responsibilities, what the city council's powers, duties, and responsibilities are in relation, and also in relation to the different branches of government between the executive, which is the mayor, and the legislative, which is the council. It establishes boards and commissions in city departments, planning department, parks department, law department, boards and commissions, for example, like the zoning board, the licensing board, and others. And it spells out how people are appointed to those boards, what those boards' responsibilities are, and how long those terms are. So for example, a member of the license board, for example, is appointed by the mayor and confirmed by the council. So every 10 years since 1980, the original home rule charter, which was not a legislative charter, and the distinction is the voters of Providence approved the home rule charter. Prior to that, just the state legislature approved a legislative charter. So the 1980 charter requires a review of the charter every 10 years to update it and to present those changes to it to the voters, which will be presented, any changes that are recommended by the Charter Commission and then the City Council will be presented to the voters of the City of Providence at the November election in 2022, when you go vote for governor and other elected offices and mayor. The voters will also have the opportunity to vote on the proposed changes. If they approve them, they become part of the charter. If they reject them, they don't become part of the charter. So for example, if there's a proposal before the voters to increase the number of people that serve on the city council from 15, say, to 20, or to have at-large council folks, as well as those that represent wards or districts, and that's rejected, it would just stay at 15. If it's approved, whatever the new proposal is will become part of the city charter. And I think that's about it for the overview. It's our framework, and we're here tonight to take public comment on what the public thinks should be changed in the way the City of Providence is organized. If you think there should be an elected school board, if you think there should be more people on the city council, or more people or less people on boards and commissions, that type of thing, we're here to listen to your comments, and I will be reporting to the full commission Wednesday evening what comments are made this evening, so everyone will know. There'll be a report, and we'll be making a final report of the City Charter Review Commission within the coming weeks, and then it will go to the City Council, and they will vote on this, and then it'll go to the voters. So with that, we have someone here in person. Yep. And if you would state your name for the record, please. So we have a record of who you are.
Yes, my name is John Heaney.
And Heaney, H-E-N-Y?
Heaney.
Okay, welcome, John. And what would you like to talk about tonight, John, regarding the city charter?
Yeah, so as far as the city charter goes, which I understand is, a much higher level than the actual ordinances themselves, but Specifically, I want to talk about the Board of Licenses. Since last year, I've had issues where I've had to go to the Board of Licenses to complain about certain licensed establishments that are clearly violating the sound ordinances. When I say clearly, I mean the city solicitor who sits in on the Board of Licenses meetings has, stated exactly what the violations are by definition, but nobody's actually citing this business as being violating of those standards, even though it's crystal clear that they are. So since then, I've gone to many Board of Licenses meetings, and I've seen many people from throughout the city who have come in to complain about various establishments. And my experience in going to these meetings is that the Board of Licenses essentially advocates for the businesses, and they don't represent the residents in any of these matters, unless there's like somebody getting stabbed or shot, and the police actually request a suspension or a closing of the establishment. The voices of the residents basically fall on deaf ears. And in the case of the sound standards, for example, the Board of Licenses in the ordinances are not even given any discretion in the matter. They are there to enforce the sound standards on the license holders, but they never do. Sound standards noise complaints are like the single most complaint that license holders, that residents complain about with businesses. There's never been a suspension based on sound standards in the history of the Board of Licenses, as far as I can tell. So in the home charter, it actually says that the Board of Licenses in control of those licenses and is intended to represent the public interest. And by public interest, that, in my mind, based on my research online, is supposed to be residents, not businesses, which makes complete sense because the businesses are there to apply for rights that we as residents already have. So the businesses don't have these rights. They apply for licenses so that they can get those rights that residents already have. So residents are not part of that process. I cannot go to the Board of Licenses and apply for peaceful enjoyment of my home for a weekend, right? So we're not there. I didn't even know the Board of Licenses existed until last year. Okay. So, but when you have residents where issues rise to the level where you go to these public meetings and you testify that these are problems, in my mind, the board should be there to represent you as a resident. That's my view of it. Now, the Board of Licenses is not doing that.
And would you suggest a change to the charter?
I am not a lawyer. I don't know what the best legal remedies are to this. I would think that maybe it makes sense to have members of the public on the board if the mayor's appointees are not doing the job. I understand that the mayor's office has a vested interest in supporting businesses. But again, my view of the Board of Licenses is that even though 99% of the time they're issuing licenses, that 1% of the time that residents are complaining, they should represent the residents. And if they're not doing that, maybe residents should be on the board.
I think
I don't know.
The members are residents of the city of Providence.
But they're appointed by the mayor.
Right. So how would someone get onto the board and represent the public if they're not appointed by the mayor?
I don't know, maybe by city council or maybe getting
So
voted
then
in by
maybe you're suggesting that the city council have a position on the board for the public at large or to report back to the city council. City council being, more parochial in a sense to neighborhood concerns and issues than the board itself looking at, the whole city.
In fact, I don't see why the entire board couldn't be appointed by the city council. I don't really understand why the mayor should be appointing.
Well,
members
because
of the board.
we don't have a purely legislative form of government. We have shared government between the executive and the city council. So the city council approves those members' appointments. So they do have a role. And those members do come up for reappointment every 3 years. So if they were, this, and I'm not to talk just about that board in particular, but in theory, if members of a board were totally not responsive to the community at all, I think that the city council would be aware of that and may not be willing to.
Well, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna have to beg to differ on that matter, because I've seen the way they get appointed. They get appointed and the full city council votes on it. And in the full city council, there's no opportunity for any public comment. So it's really, I mean, really,
Well,
this is the board of licensing.
They actually would go to, the way the city council works is when an appointment comes in from the mayor, and it works the same way in state legislature typically, that appointment is sent to a committee that deals with that topic. Typically, mostly the finance committee and the city council, who then would vet that person. And I would imagine that the public, if they were aware of that appointment or opposed to that appointment, could write members of the city council, members of that committee, could approach them. And council people are very approachable, call them, write them, and let them know your thoughts about that.
Sure.
Particular appointee to any board, and I don't want to dwell, I'll just focus on, not dwell, but just focus on the board of licenses, because I don't, you know, I don't want to pick on them. I'm just saying, just in general, that's how appointments are made, and the public weigh in on those appointments theoretically.
Yeah.
So,
Well, in theory and practice are the same. In practice, they are not. So the idea that anybody from the public would be aware of anybody even being appointed,
right,
or even have any knowledge of what their qualifications are, or whether or not they're going to be a problem for the next, what is it,
right.
40 years.
Well,
It's really remote.
I guess the idea is that the council folks, it's representative government, and they should be representing the public's interest, so that the public doesn't have to see who's being appointed and weigh in on that.
So I don't know what the remedy is.
Right. I was gonna say, so just in the interest of time, I mean, it's a pretty clear request in terms of where the concern would lie, which is the board of licenses and just the accountability function in terms of what their purpose is. And so I think it's a clear request in terms of what the commission is going to be asked to do. So I certainly have my notes in terms of how to convey this at the commission level. But I do know we have other people online, and I know we have people in person. So
Can I ask one quick question though, since you said that? Is there another mechanism of accountability once a board is established?
Yes. A board member could be removed in under section, I think it's 403B, but there would have to be hearings and cause.
Right. And that's initiated by?
I think the city council.
Interesting. All right, anyways, that's my issue.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
thank you very much.
Okay,
We have another individual in person.
yes, hi, man. I guess you could sit there.
Yeah, I think it's still fixed.
Okay. You can say, yeah, hi, my name is Bob Ritchie. I'm the commissioner, one of the commissioners of the City Charter Review Commission. Welcome.
Thank you.
And if you could state your name.
My name is Mimi Menuano.
Okay, are we picking her up?
If you wouldn't mind, coming over here.
If
is
you
that
sit
okay?
there so that
It's just the audience.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Okay, thank you. So what was your name again?
Mimi Menuano.
Okay, welcome. And what would you like to talk about tonight regarding the city charter?
I just wanted to hear what was being discussed.
Oh, okay.
So I'm keen to listen on. And if I have anything to ask, or if I want certain things clarified, ask questions.
Perfect. Okay, fine. Well, thank you. Okay, well then, if you don't have a question now, we're gonna go to some people that are online.
Okay, yeah. No problem.
Sorry. I believe it's Jess Sigmund is the next individual with their hand raised. And just as a reminder to folks who are participating virtually, if you use the raise your hand function, we'll be happy to promote you to panelists as we move through the list. So at this point, I believe Jess Signa has been moved to a panelist. So Jess, if you could just state your name for the record and what you're calling in to speak on.
Hello, my name is Jessica Signa. I live at 150 Dexter Road, Providence.
Welcome.
Thank you.
What are your comments regarding city charter this evening?
Yes, I am in favor of a reduction of city councilors, either to 7 or 9, and then making them full-time.
Okay. Very interesting. I don't think I've heard that proposal. You're the first. And the reason being, if you don't mind me asking, you think it's more of a full-time job?
I do think
So
it's a
that-
full-time job, and I am definitely opposed to increasing the number of city council people. I think that our community is too small for 20 city councilors.
Okay, so I think the proposal that may come forward would be, there's 15 wards, right? And
Currently,
yeah, and the proposed change would be to add additional council people either elected on a citywide basis, at large, or on a regional basis.
at-large members, it's been proven across the country, are usually rich white people, and they do not usually represent the majority of the citizens of communities. So I am opposed to that.
How about regionally? How about if there were 4 and the city
So
was?
then you're considering creating an additional layer of wards?
Well, just throw this out as a thought, 4 additional wards. But
No,
those
no,
would
we need-
represent
so-
25% of the city.
That seems like a very foolish endeavor, given how hard it is to redistrict the city as is. So you would be creating many more precincts. Right now, we have almost 80 polling places in the city. If you were to do that, you would definitely increase polling places and the amount of different ballots that need to be created for voters to vote, and definitely increasing the work of the board of canvassers. And without giving more money and staff to the board of canvassers, I think that's a very poor idea.
Okay. Well, do you have any other thoughts on the city charter?
That's all.
Okay, well, thank you so much for coming and proposing an interesting thought. Thank you.
Thank
Have
you.
a nice.
All right, I see there are a few other people in attendance. I'm not sure if anybody else is wishing to speak this evening. So if anybody in attendance wishes to speak, again, if you could just use the raise your hand function at this time, we'll be happy to promote you and hear from you as soon as you do that. Does not appear so.
Okay,
All right. Any other thoughts or
well then,
questions at this point?
and well, at this point, I'd like to thank everyone who,
Wait, I have a question.
okay, go ahead, please.
I came a little late, so, can you just give me a background of what?
The charter is?
Yes.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Okay. So the charter, which is in front of me here,
Okay,
is a framework of how the city government operates, or the type of government, the form of government. So what it does is it establishes that there'll be a mayor, and what the mayor's powers, if you will, authority and responsibility are. Establishes a legislative branch, which is the city council. Excuse me, how many people will serve on the city council and, how many wards and what their responsibilities are. And the interplay between those two branches. For example, the mayor makes appointments to boards and commissions and the city council approves those boards and commissions. And as you heard maybe a moment ago, it
And
can even take
you're-
somebody off a board and commission if need be.
You're the chairman of.
Okay, so every 10 years, the 1980 Home Rule Charter, which means the voters approved it. Prior to that, the state legislature used to approve the city's charter, requires the charter to be reviewed and updated, and any changes put before the voters, which will happen in November, at the November election this year. I don't know the exact date of what the November election is going to be, but everybody will know it's election day. Who am I? I'm a member of the City Charter Review Commission that was appointed by the mayor and approved by the city council. The mayor has 4 appointments and the city council has 5. There's 9 members of the commission. And we've been working since late January, I think, on updating the city charter and having, meetings, public meetings that the public can listen in on or come and sit here and listen to. And we've had all the departments in. Now we're listening in tonight to public input with the public things. Should be changed.
So what are the changes that are being proposed?
Gee, I wish I knew. We have a long, long list and we're gonna have a few meetings coming up and pick the ones that we want to send over to the city council. It's gonna be a recommendation to city council and then city council will finally make the final decision which changes will actually go forward to the public at the November election.
So
So they're not, haven't been
Today's
determined
meeting.
yet. The changes have not yet been determined. They're under discussion, under deliberation, if you will.
well, how does the public know that these meetings are being held? No one's here.
There's been a lot of advertisement. It's on the city's websites. There's been outreach. Maybe Sean, you can explain some of that.
Advertisement where?
Yeah, so the city, when all council related and all city boards and commissions meet, the city of Providence has the open meetings portal, which is on the city website, which posts 48 hours in advance the full agenda of all meetings to take place. I can certainly let you know that when it comes to the Charter Review Commission specifically, it's every Wednesday at 5:30. The commission meets in this very room for purposes of deliberating whatever's on their agenda. As the commissioner had indicated, they have been kind of going through the departments to hear from each department as to their limitations or concerns based on the charter in its current form.
So I can come in here, well, I am in here, and say, hey, I'd like for there to be more child-based community events where I live in my community.
Mhm.
Is that something that?
That's really not something that is in the charter, because the charter is a broader framework.
Okay.
But I think the way you would do that is you could talk to your city council person.
Mhm.
You could maybe get a petition of your neighbors, send it into city hall, to the mayor and to the city council. With more voices for that type of activity, you probably get more support, more attention.
I'll be happy to give you my information as well. I work with the city council office and I'll be sure to connect you with the council member and councilors as necessary to make sure that your concerns are voiced.
Oh, thank you.
Okay? If you have any other questions, let us know.
No, that's all.
I think we're going to, if no one else is here this evening that wishes to comment on the city charter review process, then we will conclude this public hearing. So if you could use the raise your hand feature or speak up somehow out there on YouTube. Okay, well then, thank you, everyone. And this concludes the city charter review public hearing.
Yeah.
Oh, we have someone?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right,
I believe it's Sophia Prey.
Hi
Hi,
there.
Sophia.
Hi. I
Hi.
am just looking through the Constitution for the first time, so I only have one specific comment to share today, which is just about the 72-hour notice, which I see the frequent time listed here, specifically about drawing work boundaries. I remember seeing an email like a little bit ago about the ward boundaries, but it was so last minute that I wasn't able to join and participate in the making of those maps. And so I would request that the hour notice be increased so that there's additional time for advertising and publicity, similar to what the community member who is present and able to be there in person is sharing. It is really hard to know what's happening already and be civic. So I think as much as we can increase all of the hour limits or like the hours of notice in the Constitution, in that framework, and then also integrate language about creating different channels for communicating about what's happening would be my request moving forward.
Okay, your phone's kind of going in and out, but I think I'm hearing you say that you would like a longer notice period than state law requires, which is 48 hours of public meetings.
And I would also just note that for the ward boundary process specifically, the charter has a 72-hour requirement for the public notice for ward boundary specific. And I know that that was indicated as well. And I do have the section number, so I've already made a note of that.
Okay, all right, well, we'll present that to the full commission. And we thank you for your comment. Do you have any other comments, Sophia?
No, not at this time. I might ask that there be also, in addition to the hour kind of advanced notice, that there are specific measures about how communications about these meetings and public review sessions are shared. So specifically adding in lines about how this will be publicized to create more accountability for the actual sharing out.
Yes, we are. We're updating a lot of that stuff and that's probably going to be one of the proposals that, social media will be used, just not, legal notices in the newspaper, for example.
Okay, thank
So
you.
that is something that's under review. Thank you very much for your participation this evening. We appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, does anyone else want to have a comment? Please raise your hand. Use the raise your hand feature. If we don't see any, then we're going to conclude the meeting. All right, I don't see any. So therefore, this will conclude the public input of the City Charter Review Commission meeting for 2022. Thank you for all those who attended, listened in, and participated. Thank you and good night.